obsidian. Prepare yourself for the man of black.
I'm Dr. Richard I. Fine, the founder and chairman of the campaign. Today, we are going to visit with William Donald Goebel. William has a case that went all the way through the California Supreme Court. The lesson from William's case is that the corruption in the California judiciary and the California judicial system is so great and so intense that there is no way whatsoever that you as a citizen will ever prevail and receive a fair trial within the California judicial system. Now, the reason for this is very simple. Over 90% of the judges in the California judiciary have received over $400 million of illegal payments from counties or courts. The same 90% of the judges in the California judiciary have received retroactive immunity from criminal prosecution, civil liability, and disciplinary action under SBX 211, enacted in 2009 within 3 days by over 2/3 of each chamber of the California legislature. Think about that. Now think about any case which you, your family, your friends, your business associates, or your acquaintances may have had in front of the California judiciary. And think back. Did you get a fair ruling? Did you get a fair order? Did you get a fair judgment? Now, what are the reasons for this? First of all, we start out at the federal government level. Under Title IV, which most people understand to be the Social Security Act, payments are made by the federal government to the state of California and to the counties. Now, those payments are made basically under the auspices of providing or helping to provide insurance and benefits to children. That's the excuse. In reality, those payments are made to county child support systems and divisions to help collect child support. Interestingly enough, and we'll take something like Orange County, where William's case existed, over 66% of the budget of the Orange County Department of Child Support Services is paid by the federal government. Now, how does this work? The federal government gives a flat amount of money to the Department of Child Support Services. However, they also give bonuses. So if the department files more cases this year than it did last year, it gets a bonus. If the department collects more money this year than it did last year, it gets a bonus. In fact, if you go on the Department of Child Support Services website, you see them advertising to have people come to them so that they can file cases on behalf of the people to increase child support. Once the department gets this money, what do they do with it? Well, naturally, they pay their employees and everything else. The money goes into the general fund of the department. The county then, from that general fund, takes money and pays the state-elected judges who are serving on the Superior Court for the County of Orange. In other words, what they are doing is they take that county money and they pay the judges. Now, the judges are state-elected constitutional officers. And under Under Article 6, Section 19 of the California Constitution, the only people that can set the salaries and compensation of the judges are, or is, the state legislature. So the counties are making illegal payments to the judges. In addition to that, the counties are appearing as parties in front of the judges. That's what happened in Williams' case. So now you have a party in front of the judge making an illegal payment to the judge. What is that called? A bribe. Under Section 7 of the California Penal Code, it's a bribe. Under 96.5 of the California Penal Code, it's a bribe. Under 92, 93, and 94 of the California Penal Code, it's a bribe. Under federal law, 18 U.S.C. Section 1346, the intangible right to honest services, it's a bribe. And there are cases that hold this. So you now have the Department of Child Support Services receiving federal money. That is a part of the County of Orange. The County of Orange then paying a bribe to the judge. And the judge, what does he do? We're going to find out. He makes his decisions for the county and also to keep his job. And this is going to occur even if the county doesn't oppose, and even if the other party doesn't oppose. So this gives you a bit of an introduction. Now I want you to be thinking about your own personal cases or things that happen to you, your relatives, your friends, your acquaintances, your business associates while we discuss Williams' case. Because in Williams' case, this is a forecast. The mother of the child didn't oppose. At the trial court level, the county didn't oppose. So in the appellate court, the county suddenly woke up and started to oppose. The only people William was fighting were the judges. And who were those judges? The judges that received the money from the county and who received that retroactive immunity from criminal prosecution. Let us begin. William, welcome to our interview and welcome to the campaign.
Thank you very, very much. Appreciate that.
Now, William, let's start out in the beginning. And in 1997, I understand that you filed a petition for custody of your son and also to pay child support. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And in 2004, you and the mother of the son, whose first name is Brenda, filed a joint petition for a judgment, stipulated judgment, which would take care of the child support and would take care of joint custody.
That's correct.
Now, at that point in time, 2004, we know that at that point in time, Chief Justice Ronald M. George in the year 2000 had told the California Judges Association that the payments to the judges were wrong and they may be unconstitutional. In 2002, we know that I already had filed 2 federal cases with respect to these payments being illegal, violating the United States Constitution, violating other laws. And also I had filed briefs with respect to the illegality of these payments. In the year 2004, when it came time for the judge to sign your stipulated judgment, did the judge tell you that he was receiving illegal payments or any payments from Orange County?
No, I was never notified of that.
Okay. Did your lawyer tell you that the judge was receiving payments from Orange County?
No, I did not.
Okay. How about Brenda's lawyer? Did Brenda's lawyer tell you that?
No.
Okay. Now, judge signs the stipulated judgment. Is that correct?
That's right.
Okay. After the judge signed the stipulated judgment, what happened next?
After the judge signed the stipulated judgment, I went to file for custody. for my son to live with me because he wanted to live with me, and he had a signed document that was notarized, and I presented this to the court. I opened up a case, an order to show cause to the court to see if I could gain custody. I went there in pro per. When I went to court, she had brought an attorney, and I'd gone in there by myself. And what I'd noticed is that the judge never looked at my paperwork. And the judge was asking me a bunch of silly questions. The whole thing is that I asked the judge, how come you haven't looked at my paperwork? My son has written you a notarized letter asking you to recognize this letter because he wants to live with me. And the judge was flipping through the pages, and then that's when I threw my hands up and I looked at the judge and I said, you haven't even looked at my paperwork. You haven't even read anything that my son's written or anything like that. And then the judge put his hands out trying to calm me down. And I was starting to see that there was something going on here, that this was a one-sided fight, and that I didn't stand a chance because she had come in there with an attorney and I came in there in pro per, and there was no respect for me. And so then when I asked the judge, I said, what are you doing up there? You haven't even looked at my paperwork or anything like that. And he stuck his hands out at me to calm me down. I just went, this is a bunch of bullshit. This is ridiculous. And the deputy grabbed me by the arm and escorted me out of the courtroom, and I was fed up. I was completely disgusted with what was going on. I'd seen that there was nothing fairness about this case at all. And they tried to calm me down out there in the hallway and try to, relax me and, calm down Mr. Goebel and everything like that. And I'd already turned my back on the thing. I knew that this whole thing there was something very, very wrong here. And so I went home very upset, very depressed. I wasn't seeing my son anymore. They'd taken my son away from me for no reason. And that got me really mad. And so I started doing some homework. And I started calling up San Francisco, I started calling up Sacramento, and I started calling up legislators, and they all blew me off. None of them showed me any respect or any honor or any kind of dignity. They just completely treated me like I was trash and like I had no significance whatsoever. Well, I wanted to find out why, and so I dug even a little bit further, and then I came to find out what was really going on, that these judges were getting paid by the county. And so I went down to the county controller auditor's office to get that information to find out if this was true or not. And I asked for if these specific judges that were looking at my case, if they were on the take on this money. Well, I got a notice back saying that it wasn't just them, but that all the Orange County judges were getting this money and that they were getting paid. Well, that infuriated me. I realized that this whole thing was nothing but a setup. I'd been taken down and that I'd never stood a chance ever having any kind of a case against this because they were all against me. They made me a victim and they made my son a victim of the ridiculous payment system and everything like that they've got going on. And I became very upset, and so I started opening up a new case where I was going to void out the orders. And I'm sorry, I'm just very emotional right now.
Let me interrupt. Before you started the new case or the motion to void everything out, before you did that, I'd like to take you to January 2011. In January 2011, did you get a notice from the Orange County Department of Child Support Services telling you that they wanted to have a hearing to raise the child support?
Yes.
Okay. And in May 2011, was there such a hearing?
There was a hearing.
Okay. And how did you appear at that hearing?
It was
by what method?
It was by telephone, and I called the courthouse as they asked me to. It was a telephonic hearing, and I videotaped my hearing with this gentleman over the phone who I did not know who he was, except I found out later on what was going on. But I videotaped my conversation with him, and I notified him that I was videotaping because I did not trust what was going on. I saw that this thing was nothing but, there was strangeness going on that I wasn't completely aware of, and so I was still doing my investigating at that point.
Now, in that hearing, did that person, and his name was Commissioner Dwayne Miranda, did that commissioner tell you and advise you that he was a commissioner and that he could only act as a judge in that hearing with your permission? Now, after that hearing, did he set another, or during that hearing, did he set another hearing for October 18th, 2011 at 2 o'clock in the afternoon?
Yes, he did.
Okay. In between the May 11th hearing and the hearing that was set for October 18th, did you do anything to get rid of this commissioner?
Yeah, once I realized that he was a commissioner, because I didn't know who he was, I'd filed a stipulation, I'd filed a non-stipulation to him and to any other commissioner for this case. I did not want to see a commissioner. I wanted a judge to hear my case.
Now, the records show that on October 18th, 2011, at 1:30 in the afternoon, not 2 p.m., there was a hearing at which you were not present between the Department of Child Support Services, Commissioner Neary, and Brenda and Brenda's attorney. I'm going to ask you, were you ever notified by either Commissioner Neary, the court, the Department of Child Support Services, or Brenda's attorney that the time of the hearing was moved up from 2 o'clock in the afternoon to 1:30?
No. Never received any notice.
Okay. So what they did is they went and had a hearing a half hour earlier than the time that was scheduled for your hearing.
Yes.
Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And the records show that at that hearing, what they did is they increased the amount of child support.
That's right.
Okay. Now, subsequent to October 18th, did you get a notice called an order to show cause, signed by Commissioner Neary, that was dated November 22nd, 2011, saying that there was going to be a hearing in January to hold you in contempt for not paying back an increased child support?
No. Right.
Well, ultimately, did you ever actually get that notice?
No.
No. Okay. Now, after November 22nd, 2018, did you then file a motion to void out every judgment and order in your case on the grounds that the judges were receiving illegal payments from Orange County?
That's right, I did.
Okay. And in those papers, in doing that research, did you then find that November notice?
Yes.
Okay. And in that November notice, did they then have papers saying that you were actually present at the October court hearing, that you were actually present at the October court hearing?
Right.
Okay. So now we have these court officers going in and saying, first of all, on October 18th, that they have a court hearing at 1:30 in the afternoon, when the hearing was supposed to be at 2 o'clock, and they don't notify you about that.
Right.
And also showing on that October 18th hearing that they knew that Commissioner Neary was disqualified from being there.
Right, there's non-stipulation. That's right.
Okay. And then on November 18th, in order to get the order to show cause, they say that you were aware of what happened on October 18th.
That's correct.
When you weren't.
When I wasn't.
Because you weren't at the hearing.
I wasn't even at the hearing, right.
Okay. So we have these judges and
Lying.
commissioners going in and falsifying documents.
That's right.
Okay.
Blatant lies.
Okay. Now, the next thing that happens is that in the latter part of December, about December 22nd or so, did you file a second motion to void out everything that Commissioner Neary did based upon these frauds?
That's correct, I did.
Okay. Now, these two motions ultimately get consolidated to have one hearing date. Is that correct?
That's right.
Now, let me ask you this. With respect to both of these motions, did Brenda or her attorney file any opposition?
No, I didn't.
With respect to both of these motions, did the Department of Child Support Services file any opposition?
They filed something that would have nothing to do with anything. It was minutia.
Okay, so basically they did not file
They didn't file anything. It was
any opposition.
any opposition, right?
Okay.
They couldn't file any opposition.
In fact, the only thing that they filed was something to continue the hearing date
To another-
of the first hearing to the same time as the second
They
hearing.
wanted to consolidate the two hearings, right?
Okay. Now, the hearing date for both of the motions then was January 20th, 2012.
That's
Is that
right. That's
Okay.
right.
Now, did the Department of Child Support Services show up at that hearing?
They weren't even there.
So they didn't file any substantive opposition, and they
Right.
didn't show up at the hearing.
Didn't even show up at court, right?
Okay. Did Brenda's attorney show up at the court?
Her attorney did show up at court.
Okay. Did he make any argument against the motions?
No argument.
All right. So to sum it all up, at this point in time, you have Brenda not filing any opposition to either motion.
Right.
Her attorney shows up at the hearing and doesn't argue against any of the motions.
Right.
And you have the Department of Child Services of Orange County not filing any substantive opposition to the motions and not even showing up at the motions.
That's
Is
right.
that right?
Yep.
And you show up in front of the judge, Kim Hubbard.
Kim Hubbard, that's right.
Now, Kim Hubbard, we know from research, was appointed, and I believe it was May 2008 by Governor Schwarzenegger.
That's right.
That's when she was appointed.
Right.
And she was getting these illegal payments.
That's correct.
In fact, during the hearing, what did she say about the illegal payments?
Well, what happened was I told the judge that there was no opposition here. Why won't she grant me my motion? And her excuse was, she gave me a couple excuses and to come back to court and to discuss them with her. And I had confronted her, telling her that she's receiving, I asked her blatantly, are you receiving payments from the County of Orange? And she admitted in open court, and it's on the transcript, that she is receiving these payments from Orange County. And I told her, well, if you're, I know you're receiving these payments because I have a document proving that you're receiving these payments. And because you are receiving these payments, you need to recuse yourself because you're biased and you're a party to the case. And she denied my motions, even though I had no opposition. And I told her that I hadn't seen my son in 2 years, and that I wanted to see my son, and that there was nothing in this hearing that could prevent me from seeing my son.
And what did she do?
She denied everything. She denied the motion, and she tried to send me to another courtroom.
So you then filed an appeal, is that correct?
I filed an appeal. That's correct.
Okay. Now, in that appeal, just as a summary from the documents in the appeal, you challenged the payments, showing, number one, that they violated the United States Constitution,
Right.
that they violated the state bribery law, that they violated obstruction of justice,
Correct.
that they violated the 13 USC section, 18 USC section 1346, which is the law with respect to payments, and that's a federal criminal law.
Right.
You showed cases that stated under this California law that when a judge receives payments from a party appearing in front of him, the judge has been removed from office.
That's right.
You know, those are cases of Adams versus the California Commission on Judicial Performance, Adams number 1 and 2. You showed cases under the federal law that when a judge receives payments from a party appearing in front of him, that he is violating the federal criminal law and that those payments are based on the bribery statute of the California law, and that's United States versus Fraga, United States versus Malkus, and United States versus Adams. You showed all of those cases. You showed that under the United States Constitution that these payments are unconstitutional, uses Toomey and the Caperton case. And then you even went in and you showed that under the Supremacy Clause, which is Article 6, Clause 2 of the United States Constitution, that state court judges must follow the U.S. Constitution, United States treaties, and United States laws. And then you came in and you showed under the Corruption Treaty that the United States has signed, under the Human Rights Treaty that the United States has signed, and under other treaties, these payments were illegal. Do you remember all of that?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Correct.
Now, you now come into the Court of Appeals, and that was the 4th Appellate District, and somehow or other, you ended up in Division 4. Is that right?
I ended up in Division 4 when I probably should have been in Division 1.
Yeah, and the reason you mentioned Division 1 is that Division 1 of this appellate district was a division that decided a case called Sturgeon versus the County of Los Angeles. And that case held that these payments violated Article 6, Section 19 of the California Constitution. And you felt that if you were in Division 1, you were going to get a fair hearing and you'd win.
Right, but I told a judge in the Superior Court, Kim Hubbard, about the Sturgeon case, and she acted like she didn't know anything about it.
So now you're in Division 4. Now, did you do some research about the judges in Division 4?
I did. I came to find out that the judges in Division 4 were also on the tape and that they were receiving the criminal illegal money and that they could not hear my case as well.
Okay. So you found out that when these judges in Division 4 were Superior Court judges, they were Superior Court judges in Orange County, and
Right.
they actually had received money from Orange County.
That's correct.
Okay. And did you move to disqualify these
I moved to
judges?
disqualify the judges.
And they held off on the disqualification
Yes, they
until
did.
the hearing.
Right.
Now, at the hearing, you had a lawyer coming in to represent you at the hearing. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay, and your lawyer came in and argued in front of these judges that they couldn't sit at that hearing because they had taken these illegal payments.
Right.
And these judges sort of looked at him with a blank face, refused to say anything,
That's right.
and they did not disqualify themselves.
Right.
So the next thing that happens is you get the opinion. And the opinion, which is coming out from these judges, states that you lose.
Right. That I lose, and they brought nothing up of the matter that I brought up in the case on my brief.
Okay. Now, by the way, it was Division 3 of that we were dealing with in the 4th Appellate District. And they're saying that you're losing. Now, the judges were O'Leary, who was the presiding judge, Bedsworth, and Aronson. These were the 3 judges.
Right.
Now, in looking at their opinion, which is very interesting, first of all, in looking at what was known as their discussion of the facts in that opinion, it appears that they did not have the facts correct.
That's right.
In fact, one of the most interesting things is that you had a transcript of your May 11th hearing.
Right.
And that's the hearing where you said that Commissioner Neary never stated that
He was a commissioner.
That he was a commissioner and not a judge.
Right.
And here they refer to that transcript. They've read the transcript. They know that Commissioner Neary never stated these things.
That's right.
And yet they rule against you, knowing full well that Commissioner Neary at that point in time had violated Family Code 4251, which says that he has to tell you, he has to advise the parties, meaning you, and that he can't proceed unless he receives your permission. And if he does proceed to do anything, he then has to send his findings up to a court, which he never did. The next thing that they talk about is they say that when he had his October 18th hearing, that's the illegal hearing that he had at 1:30 in the afternoon, they say that you should have done something about that hearing and appealed it to a judge, when in fact the law says that he has to give the findings to a judge, notify you, and then you do something.
That's right.
So once again, they misstate the facts entirely. And then they do nothing about what happened on November 22nd on the lies, where they say that you were present on October 15th. So we have, first of all, we have these judges going in and totally misstating what occurs in the clear record. The next thing that these judges deal with is they don't have a case that is dealing with SBX 211. They talk about SBX 211 and they say it's irrelevant. And here we have the judges that are talking about SBX 211 that is giving these judges and Kim Hubbard retroactive immunity from criminal prosecution for having taken these payments, and they're saying that that doesn't count. Absurd. Totally and completely absurd. Then we come in to the next thing when they're dealing with the legality of the payments. Now, they don't have a case that they can back up the legality of the payments, because none exists. No case says that these payments are legal. So what did they do? They went back to two cases in which I personally was involved back in 2002. Well, one case in 2002, and then the case of the denial of my writ of habeas corpus in 2010. Neither of these two cases are precedent, and neither of these two cases are reported. The first case that they talked about was a case called Silva versus Garcetti, in which John Silva sued the County of Los Angeles, Judge Chalfant, Commissioner Bruce E. Mitchell, and various appellate judges with respect to the taking of the illegal payments and the concealing of the taking of the illegal payments. And Judge A. Howard Matz dismissed the case based upon the fact of his claim that Silva didn't have what they called prudential standing. However, Silva at that point in time was engaged in a divorce proceeding where he was challenging the county about having hidden his payments and was seeking an accounting. So he did have standing. And these judges in the Court of Appeal do not deal with the holding of the case. They talk about Judge Matz trying to refer to a California case which was dealing with a person in the basic workman's compensation area where a workman's comp judge or something was getting paid based upon whether there was a win or loss in the case. Nothing whatsoever to do with judges getting bribes.
Nothing.
But in addition to that, what they don't deal with is the fact that the federal law and all these other laws hold these payments to be bribes. So that took care of the Silva case. Had nothing whatsoever to do with what we were dealing here. The second case that they refer to is the case known as Fine versus Sheriff V. Baca, which was the denial of the writ of habeas corpus in my case. And there, they try and say that these payments aren't really a constitutional violation. Now, in that case, the Ninth Circuit did say that, but the Ninth Circuit did not deal with the case of the Caperton case, which held that when you make major contributions to someone, it is a violation of due process. And in addition to that, the Ninth Circuit did not deal with the fact of the bias that Judge Yaffe had against me, which these California judges knew about, because at the time that they're making their decision, and at the time that this decision goes up before the California Supreme Court, it came out that Judge Yaffe had a visceral hatred towards me, that he wanted revenge against me, that he wanted to silence me, and that he wanted to take me out of circulation. Not only he, but all the judges of the LA Superior Court. And that came out with the interview of Alan Caracini, the former public relations officer, the public information officer of the LA Superior Court. And that case in the Ninth Circuit was not published, it was not precedent. And these judges knew that because they cited that case being such. So they didn't have any case. Is that correct?
That's right.
So there's no case that they had that could show that the payments were legal in any form whatsoever. And then finally, with respect to all the treaties and their duties under the United States Constitution, they just blew that off. They really just said that you mentioned these things, but basically that really doesn't matter. So that became their decision.
Right.
You then went to the California Supreme Court. And what did the California Supreme Court do?
They denied my motion.
They just didn't even take the case.
Here, look at the case.
Now, on the California Supreme Court, what did we have? We had, out of the 7 justices that refused or denied your petition for writ of certiorari,
5 of them
or writ of review, you had 4 of them who received, based upon their histories, received payments from the counties while they were Superior Court judges, and the 5th one, Justice Baxter, was on the commission for on the California Judicial Council that wrote SBX 211 that gave everybody the retroactive immunity for criminal prosecution, civil liability, and disciplinary action. So that sort of takes care of the California courts. Now, during the same period of time, in January and April of 2012, what did Commissioner Neary then try and do to you?
He issued an arrest warrant for me.
Okay, and that arrest warrant was to get you to come to court to face that false contempt charge that he had against you.
That's right. That's correct.
All right. And what did you do with respect to that?
Well, I videotaped my conversation with him once again, and I told him that he needed to follow the rule of law because I was in a court of appeal, and he denied me anything of the sort, and he issued an arrest warrant, and the arrest warrant was for $25,000, which exceeds anything that he could do, and there was no time in sight, and I issued the arrest warrant to arrest me. Yeah.
Okay, and you then took a writ of habeas corpus.
I took a writ of habeas corpus to get rid of that arrest warrant. I took it all the way up to the Ninth Circuit.
Well, first you took it up to the California Supreme Court.
Okay, I took it up to the California Supreme Court. I went up to the Court of Appeals. I went up to the District Court, the Federal Court, the District Court of Southern California of Los Angeles. They denied me. Those judges in that court were also on the take.
Okay, now when you say they're on the take, in fact, the judge in the U.S. District Court was Josephine Tucker. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And Josephine Tucker, according to her financial statements, she was appointed in 2010.
Right.
And according to her financial statement in the year 2010, she received money from the County of Orange.
That's right.
Because she was appointed halfway through the year.
Right.
And in previous years, she had received money from the County of Orange while she was an Orange County Superior Court judge.
That's right.
So we knew, or you knew, that
she was disqualified too, basically.
that she should have been disqualified and not even be sitting on your case.
Right.
And then you went up to the Ninth Circuit.
Right, after doing letters of reconsideration, they denied me again, and then I went up to the Ninth Circuit, and they denied me in the Ninth Circuit. And so once again, they denied me in the Ninth Circuit, and they wrote a bunch of stuff that had nothing to do with anything that I was doing. And then I sent them another letter of reconsideration, and they still have this arrest warrant out for me, and I'm just waiting to see where we stand with this last letter.
Okay, so at the present time, You are in the Ninth Circuit with a letter of reconsideration because what happened is that the district court basically really didn't look at what your writ of habeas corpus was and went up to the Ninth Circuit. They didn't look at it either. And now you're telling them to reconsider and finally take a look at what's happening because what took place here is that due way back in the beginning that Commissioner Neary never had the right to, one, sit on your case,
Right.
and second of all, clearly never had the right to issue the arrest warrant.
That's correct.
Okay. Now, what's recently happened to you with respect to the Orange County Department of Child Support Services?
Well, they sent me a notice telling me that they had heard that, well, here's a notice right here.
Okay, and this notice says, we have learned that you may not be working at this time. And then the end of it says, if you have any questions or would like to ask about reviewing or changing your court order, please call, and they give you a number or say, please write. Now, what do you feel about, and this is dated June 26, 2013. What do you feel about getting a letter after all this happens from the Department of Child Support Services telling you that if you have any questions to call them to change the child support order?
It's an absolute joke. It's ridiculous.
And in fact, doesn't this really show the stupidity of everything that has happened here?
It shows the corruption, it shows the stupidity, it shows the danger of even getting involved with these people, and just how corrupt the whole thing is. There's no judge there that's really qualified to be a judge on my case, and probably several other cases.
And for those of you that are listening to this Williams case is the lesson to be learned. What has happened in Williams' case is that we have judges who receive illegal payments, which the cases have held to be bribes, from Orange County or from a county, who have sat on the case, who have refused to be removed from the case, even when the other side, Brenda, did not oppose the motions. Even when in the trial court, the County of Orange did not oppose the motions. So in the end, William was fighting only the judges who had only one interest: defending the money that they illegally received and staying on as being judges when they had received retroactive immunity from criminal prosecution for having received what the cases have held to be these bribes. And what happens after he goes through all of this, where he ends up not being able to work because they issue a false arrest warrant for him, where the district court judge who herself received these bribes rules against him. After all this takes place, what happens? He gets a letter, and the letter says, we understand that you're not working. Please call us if you want to modify your child custody payments. What did William want to do in the beginning? William wanted to change the custody of his son, who wanted to come and live with him. That's all that William wanted to do. His son wanted to do it. The mother of the son didn't object. He went through all of these things to be battered, beaten, knocked about, tromped upon, only to get a letter in the end saying, we understand you're not working because we forced you into not working. Now, if you want to reduce your payments, call us. Doesn't this prove to you the absurdity of all of this? and why these judges should not be in office, why the county supervisors who are giving them this money, even today, $30 to $35 million a year is being given to judges illegally by counties and courts, why that should stop. Well, you've seen the court system isn't going to cure it. Your government officials are not going to cure it. We know going to Eric Holder is not going to cure it. They've gone to Jerry Brown when he was the Attorney General. He didn't stop it. They've gone to Kamala Harris. They didn't stop it. People have gone to grand juries in the various counties. They haven't stopped it. The only thing that is going to stop this type of illegal conduct is to pass the amendment that is in the legislature at the present time to get rid of these judges and these supervisors, stop the state contributions into their pensions, and force them to report what other counties are still doing it, and to go to our federal representatives, force the investigations into why the Department of Justice did not prosecute these people, force the investigations into why these judges did not pay taxes on the monies that went into their 401k accounts from counties who are not their employers, find out why the federal government is paying money into these counties when the counties are taking the money and using it to make illegal payments and bribes to the judges, and to stop all federal payments into these counties and into California until everything is finished and these payments no longer exist and the judges and the supervisors are no longer in office. Now, how can you do that? You can come to the website, voteforjustice.org, go to the page that says how you do it, fill in your name, your address, and your email, and press the button. And letters will go out to all of these people under your email address. And those letters will ask these legislators and congresspeople and senators to respond to you. And if they don't respond within 2 weeks, you can come back to the website, press another button saying, legislator, congressperson, supervisor, you didn't respond. What are you doing? And you can keep doing that. And then if you still don't get responses, you will vote these people out of office until we get people in office who will respond. It is your power. It is our power. We have the power of the vote. That is the ultimate power. And that is the power that we must exercise. That is the only power that our representatives will listen to. We exercise that.
You think this is funny? Join with me?
No, Frieza, there's nothing funny about this.
that you've done to me, I'll pay you back 10 times. No, 1,000 times. Oh, yes, stupid sailor. You will pay for this. What do you mean? Don't just stand there, say something! You said it's done! What do you mean?
Your energy level is decreasing with every blow. In fact, you're not even a challenge to me anymore. It wouldn't be fair for me to keep fighting you. I'm satisfied now. Your pride has been torn to shreds. You've challenged and lost to a fighter who is superior to you, and to make it worse, he's just a monkey.
I am Mr. Obsidian. Prepare yourself for the Man of Black.
You think this is funny? Toying with me?
No, Frieza, there's nothing funny about this.
All that you've done to me, I'll pay you back 10 times. No, 1,000 times. Oh, yes, stupid sailor. You will pay for this. just stand there, say something! You said it's done! What do you mean?
Your energy level is decreasing with every blow. In fact, you're not even a challenge to me anymore. It wouldn't be fair for me to keep fighting you. I'm satisfied now. Your pride has been torn to shreds. You've challenged and lost to a fighter who is superior to you, and to make it worse, he's just a monkey, right?